Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Kate Cardaleza, your moderator, and on behalf of Entrust and Entrust, I would like to extend a warm welcome to you all to today's webinar, Back to Basics and Beyond, Understanding the Basics and Getting the Most Out of Your SSL Certificates. So in this webinar, we will dive into the fundamental and essential SSL certificates and how it helps businesses and organizations prevent cyber threats. So today's webinar is scheduled to last 1.5 hours, including the Q&A. Before we begin, and before I introduce you to our speakers, I would like to go over some housekeeping rules. All right, so all participants will be muted and your cameras are being turned off throughout the webinar to enable the speakers to present without interruption and of course for your privacy. If your connection stops, just log off and log back in and you will be in the webinar room once again. Anytime if you have questions during the presentations, you may submit via the question function located at the right panel of your screen. This session is being recorded and will be sent to registered attendees afterwards, along with the presentation slides, and you will also find the on-demand webinar video on our YouTube channel after the webinar. All right, so we encourage everyone to stay tuned until the end of the webinar, and we hope that today, after today's session, you will walk away from this webinar with insights on how to understand the certificate structures and their roles, what are the recent changes and their impacts, how SSL certificates are managed now, and how you can maximize your certificate with better web security. And now, it's my pleasure to introduce you to our panel of speakers. Joining us today, contributing and leading the discussion is Aaron Fu. Aaron is a cybersecurity enthusiast and the Business Development Director of Entrust. So Entrust is the first public certificate authority in Asia and the only accredited certificate authority in Singapore. Aaron heads the certificates business unit and is responsible for expanding Entrust's cryptographic products and solutions by providing high-value consultancy for businesses looking to digitally transform their workflow and secure their sensitive documents. And joining Aaron is Kevin Brown. Kevin has 18 years experience in digital security, and he specializes in industry standards, simplifying digital security certificates for Entrust Certificate Solutions as a senior product manager. All right, without much further ado, we will turn the time over to Aaron and Kevin. Gentlemen, over to you, please.
Thanks, Kate, for the introduction. I just want to wish all of you a good afternoon. Before we dive into the details on SSL certificates, I'd just like to give you a brief background on who Entrust is and what we do. So Entrust, we provide comprehensive cybersecurity solutions to our customers along a few different verticals. One of the vertical being the crypto identity security, of which Entrust is one of our solution provider within this product category. We also have solutions in the infrastructure security category, where we provide the traditional firewalls, endpoint protections, as well as external threat management and vulnerability management. We are also in the application security space, where we provide software, source code scanning tools, as well as training tools to help developers code securely. And we also provide professional consultancy, as well as assessment services for our customers. So Entrust, we are the first public certificate authority in Asia, and we are currently Singapore's only accredited CA. So we actually provide individuals, businesses, and governments with an online identity, and as well as a security infrastructure that enables secure electronic transaction. So just to share some of our customer references in Singapore. Within Singapore, we have customers in the government space. We are actually very strong in the government. I would say almost probably all the Singapore government are our customers. We are also strong in the financial institution space, where all the 3 major banks are our customers. We also have majority of the education industry of the IHLs, and also all the 3 major telecommunication companies are also our customers. And even for private sector, we also have a large number of customers within the enterprise sector. Just so happens that we have quite a number of shipping companies, which is why you see a number of shipping companies in that particular vertical. So just to share what is the role of NetTrust, who NetTrust is, and what's our partnership with Entrust. So Entrust, we have been a partner of Entrust for more than 20 years, and we actually share the same goal of providing comprehensive and trusted identity for our customers regionally. So NetTrust is the exclusive reseller of Entrust in Singapore, and we are also the regional distributor for Entrust in the ASEAN region. So our focus for Entrust products, we provide the actually in-house local technical support team, as well as a verification team for Entrust within NetTrust itself. And we focus on two business areas that Entrust has. One of it is the certificate solutions, which we'll be talking about in detail later for public SSL certificates. And the other one is in the identity and access management solutions, where we'll talk about this in a separate webinar. So now I'd like to hand the time over to Kevin, who will give us an introduction of Entrust as well as the introduction into SSL certificates. Over to you, Kevin.
Thanks, Aaron. So good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. So let me spend a few minutes and introduce you to Entrust. If we can move to the next slide. First, I'll maybe just give you a quick overview of who we are and what we do. Entrust is a global company. We have over $800 million in annual revenue. From an experience perspective, we have 50 plus years of security experience, which also includes 25 plus years of digital identity innovation. Over that time, we've successfully protected over 95 million workforce and consumer identities, from payment card systems and e-commerce sites to national borders and corporate networks. Entrust is a partner, we're an innovator as well as a leader. We are a quiet company. Unless you're an Entrust customer, partner, or employee, you might not know about us. But behind the scenes, we touch people's lives every single day. Next slide. So just wait a second for the slide to transition. So security is our core business. It's important to emphasize it's not an add-on for Entrust. Not surprisingly then, as you can see from the slide, we have the most robust security portfolio available in the marketplace today, with the full suite of both physical as well as digital solutions, which can range from access control and instant issuance to both PKI and IAM. We've developed a truly unmatched portfolio of solutions. For decades, our issuance solutions have served as clear industry standards. Majority of the world's financial cards and countless other identity documents are printed, personalized, and delivered using Entrust solutions. The fastest growing part of our portfolio is actually digital security. Through both organic growth and acquisitions, we've built a portfolio of core technologies that are essential for enabling and securing a connected world. One of the great differentiating factors of our digital solutions is what we refer to as high assurance security. There are a number of similar sounding solutions in the market, but unfortunately, many of these other solutions only address simple things, whether it's trying to eliminate passwords or providing mobile access to networks and other assets. Whereas Entrust solutions create seamless and frictionless experiences for workers, consumers, citizens, and other users. But beyond that, Entrust also offers serious enterprise-grade security to protect what matters to enterprises. The root of this high assurance distinction actually goes back decades and is rooted in our encryption and public key infrastructure capabilities. It's an important advantage for our customers, especially as cyber threats increase in both the frequency of threats as well as the sophistication of those threats as well. If we could move forward to the next slide, please. So I want to start by just taking a step back and talking about PKI on a very high level. If you think about public key infrastructure or PKI, which is the acronym for that, it's essentially a technology framework that supports encryption key pairs as well as digital certificates to secure and authenticate any type of communication. Authentication of the party that you wish to communicate securely with ensures that you're communicating with an entity that is who they say they are. As part of the PKI framework, it also makes use of what we refer to as asymmetric encryption, which ensures that you can communicate securely even if the user or site visitor is unknown to you. And when I say unknown to you, perhaps unknown to the enterprise. So let's dive a little deeper, and if we can move to the next slide. So when you start to think about PKI, underlying the PKI technology framework is really 6 key components. The first is, as I mentioned just briefly in the earlier slide, a set of public and private key pairs, which support both a combination of symmetric and asymmetric encryption. In addition to that, it also encompasses X509 digital certificates, which is a collective term referring to SSL TLS certificates, MIME certificates, which is used for email, as well as code and document signing certificates as well. It also actually encompasses digital signatures, and digital signatures are typically found as part of the MIME certificate offering or the document signing certificate offering as well. And to help that, these different pieces work together, you also need a certificate authority, and with that certificate authority, you get a chain of trust. And to support that chain of trust, that certificate authority has to follow a set of policies, processes, and procedures. Now, I'm not going to go into detail of all of these components within this specific webinar. However, I do want to spend a bit of time and call out some of the important ones. And so let's take a look at the role of certificate authorities on the next slide. So when discussing PKI, it is important to understand what role a certificate authority plays. You can think of a certificate authority as a trusted organization, and again, it's one of the underlying pillars of public key infrastructure. Now, in order to be a trusted certificate authority, the CEA for short, actually has to undergo an annual, what we refer to as a Web Trust audit. Once the Web Trust audit is completed, that audit is then provided to the various root programs of the various browsers. So for example, Google, Mozilla, Microsoft each have their own root programs, and the certificate authority has to provide the results of their audits in order to participate in that root program. Certificate authorities also have to follow a very specific set of rules and processes that are defined by an industry-wide organization called the CAB Forum. The CAB Forum documents these processes in the form of ballots, and these are documented by the certificate authority in the form of what they refer to as a certificate practice statement, also known as a CPS for short. The badges below are essentially seals that are issued to a certificate authority if that certificate authority has successfully passed their Web Trust audit. Note, you'll see there's 4 or 5 different badges. Each badge represents a different type of audit, which covers the baseline requirements for SSL, extended validation, as well as ED code signing. If we move to the next slide. So tied to the role of certificate authorities and the fact that a certificate authority has to be a trusted organization, another important aspect to highlight in the context of PKI is the certificate authority chain of trust. A CA's root certificates are actually the foundation of trust, which ensures that an organization's users and brand can be trusted globally. Root certificates are essentially the first link in that chain of trust, which are the root certificate at the top left of the diagram. Web browsers and connecting devices inherently trust all certificates that have been signed by any root certificate, provided that that root certificate is embedded in the browser or within an operating system that relies on that root certificate. To improve security, certificate authorities typically issue what we refer to as an intermediate certificate, or as you can see, intermediate root certificate in the diagram. And that intermediate root certificate has an average lifespan of around 5 years. The intermediate certificate is installed by the organization at the same time they install their SSL certificate. As you can see from the diagram, the browser trusts the root certificate trusts the intermediate root certificate, and the intermediate root certificate trusts the SSL certificate at the bottom. Now, it's important to call out that if any of the certificates in the chain become untrusted, everything beneath that chain is automatically untrusted as well. If we can go to the next slide. And now that we've kind of covered the certificate authority chain of trust, certificate authorities typically, as well as Entrust, issue a wide variety of different types of SSL certificates to help enterprises address different use cases in their network. As you can see from this diagram, Entrust offers a broad range of SSL certificate types, which support a number of different use cases. All of Entrust's SSL certificates come from a trusted CA, so we're obviously part of the various root programs with the browsers. And all of these certificates are available through a management console with both a cloud-based UI as well as a REST API. And if you look at these certificate product names, you can see we've got both a combination of OV and EV SSL certificates, all of which include an organization name and deliver encryption using either the RSA or the ECC encryption algorithm. Depending on the certificate type that a customer wants, they can get a minimum of 1 domain or up to 250 domains. And at Entrust, whenever a customer buys an SSL certificate from us, if they use a domain such as example.com, we always add the subdomain www.example.com for free. Looking at the slide, middle left to middle right, you see we've got standard UC multi-domain or wildcard certificates. These are all what we refer to as SSL certificates that are issued to the OV verification standard, and I'll touch on that in a few slides further down. But Entrust also supports wildcard certificates. Wildcard certificates are very popular because of the flexibility that they provide if an enterprise has changing web environments, and their ability to secure unlimited subdomains with one certificate. On the other hand, we also support private SSL certificates, which are inherently untrusted, but they are issued by Entrust. The benefit of a private SSL certificate is that it does eliminate the cost of an enterprise running and maintaining their own internal CA, which is managed in the Entrust Certificate Services platform. And again, as part of the offering, we also offer products and certificates, whether it's code signing, document signing, and SMIME certificates to enable enterprises to sign files, documents, and emails. So if we go on to the next slide. So what is HTTPS? If you think about HTTPS, it's a secure version of the hypertext transfer protocol, and it's also the primary protocol that's used to send data securely between a web browser and a website. HTTPS inherently supports encryption of the exchange data through the use of an SSL certificate. It also supports data integrity, ensuring that any attempts to modify or corrupt the data are flagged. And finally, it also supports authentication. By supporting authentication, that proves that a user is communicating with the intended website. So let's talk a little bit about public and private key pairs on the next slide. And I mentioned this briefly earlier, but asymmetric encryption is based on a public and private key pair model, which allows two parties that do not know each other to establish a shared secret key over an insecure communication channel. And a great example of this is the internet. Again, it allows parties to communicate with other parties that are not known to the individual to communicate securely. As you can see from the diagram at the bottom, there are two different keys. The private key, which must be kept secure. The private key is used for decryption, as well as the public key, which is essentially available to anyone, and the public key is used for encryption. There are a number of different asymmetric encryption algorithms. For example, RSA is the most common one, as well as DSA and ECC. Entrust, with our product offering, support both the RSA and ECC encryption algorithms. By contrast, symmetric encryption, if you look at the diagram at the top, assumes the two parties already know and trust each other. So the example here is Bob and Alice. And this encryption model, the basis, the encryption algorithms that supports symmetric encryption are AES, DES, as well as triple DES. The only thing with symmetric encryption is it's not highly scalable if you're trying to communicate securely with a very large number of different entities. If we go to the next slide. So what are the benefits of using SSL technology with online applications? Well, when you think about the benefits, they fall into different categories. But when presenting public-facing applications that are used by customers and/or users, you can essentially create a safer experience. And by building out a safer experience, you can help establish trust with your customers and users. And in the context of commerce, to the extent you can improve trust, you can also help improve conversions as well as online sales. Marketing teams are also able to benefit from SSL, especially in the context of Google search rankings. HTTPS, or when a website deploys an SSL certificate and makes use of HTTPS on their websites, that's actually classified by Google as one of several ranking criteria used to try and improve the performance of a website's search ranking. Not to mention that SSL TLS can also help organizations meet compliance goals. SSL TLS allows organizations to encrypt data in motion and therefore protect both customer data as well as their own internal data. We can go to the next slide. So SSL certificates actually represent a very versatile technology, and therefore, because of this versatility, it supports a very broad range of use cases. Again, if you're thinking about the use cases, some use cases might fall into a customer-facing context, and in this context, SSL could be used to secure credit card transactions. They could be used to secure account logins, as well as entry and transmission of what we call P2 information, or personally identifiable information. In an employee context and in an enterprise context, SSL can be used to secure webmail and productivity suites such as Office 365, or enable and secure the transfer of large files across HTTPS as well as FTPS. And SSL is also used in the context of VPNs and mobile devices. For each use case, though, organizations do have to purchase, install, and frequently ensure that these certificates are renewed. By not renewing certificates, you do run the risk of downtime of either internal or external services, and this can lead to additional costs. However, the bigger the business, typically what we find in our industry is that the bigger the certificate estate and the more time and effort is spent on managing SSL certificates. Next slide. So when you think about SSL certificates from an industry perspective, the industry as a whole supports three different categories that have what we refer to as three different levels of identity embedded in these certificates. Looking at this diagram from left to right, let's start with domain validated certificates. These types of certificates have the lowest form of identity in that they only confirm control over the domain name, and a DV SSL certificate is analogous to a business card. You typically tend to find DV SSL certificates in an internal network, and they're also commonly used in the SMB market. Moving to organization validated certificates, on the other hand, a certificate authority has to go through the process of vetting the website owner's identity and ensure that the site is owned by a legitimate organization, and that the organization that owns the website also has control of the domain name. This is almost similar to thinking about a driver's license. It's analogous to a driver's license when you think about the type of identity checks that the certificate authority has to perform. Whereas if we move towards the right, EV certificates contain the strongest form of identity verification. So again, a certificate authority has to vet the organization's identity. We've got to verify control over the domain. And when the person that requests the certificate, we also have to go and verify the employment and ensure that that person requesting the certificate is an employee of the company and that they have the authority to request that certificate. So again, this product or certificate category rather represents the highest level of identity in the marketplace. And we typically tend to see EV certificates used by medium to large enterprises. Really, and it goes back to the point of trying to reassure users that the organization they're dealing with is who they say they are. Organizations typically tend to use this product to help establish trust and also with other commercial factors, whether it's trying to improve conversions, et cetera, et cetera. And again, when you're thinking about EV SSL certificates, they're analogous to a passport. And sorry, I think if we can just transition the slide a few steps, you might need to build it just to show the business card, driver's license, and passports. If we just build it once more, okay. So if we can maybe transition to the next slide. So again, when you're considering which type of certificate to use, some users might consider free options. And it's true, there are certificate authorities in the marketplace that offer free SSL certificates. However, it's important to be aware of some of the constraints related to free certificates. Providers of free certificates typically are not organized to support the enterprise use case. Our observation is that the support model is typically community driven, and there are no pathways for an enterprise to get access to premium or shorter response times. The product range also typically tends to be limited to DV SSL certificates, and therefore, in the context of an enterprise, a free certificate authority provider is often unable to address all of the enterprise use cases. Again, the other thing you tend to find with free certificate providers is that there are constraints placed on the SSL certificates in order to keep the cost of the technology low. And some of these constraints that you will see is limiting the lifetime of the validity of that certificate to 90 days, right? When in actual fact, the CAB forum allows certificate authorities to have a maximum lifetime of 13 months. And the reason why the certificate is limited to 90 days in the context of free certificates is that it reduces the cost of hosting and support of what we call OCSP and CRL. These are acronyms for two mandatory protocols that are incorporated into SSL certificates and are related to both offline and online revocation checking of SSL certificates. In my experience, in some of the crises that we've seen historically, when we had Heartbleed a few years back, some free certificate authorities ended up charging customers to replace their certificates because of the exorbitant cost of OCSPs, maintaining the OCSP protocol. So those are just a few pointers to be aware of. If we go on to the next slide. So I just want to chat a little bit about SMIME certificates. Again, this is another category of certificate. SMIME stands for Secure Multi-Purpose Internet Mail Extension, and it can help enterprises in a few different areas. To start with, it helps the recipient of an email to identify where the email came from, so that an employee can verify that the email came from a CEO or a CFO, and therefore they can trust the from address of that email. Unencrypted enterprise information, regardless of the size of the organization, has a lot of value to bad guys. Emails can contain customer or employee P2 information, not to mention confidential information or trade secrets. Finally, SMIME certificates ensure that the email and its contents have not been altered during transit. This is what we refer to as non-repudiation. The three key points to remember about an enterprise secure email certificate is that it provides both digital identity and encryption when an employee sends an email. And this can also help in the context of business email compromise attacks. We go to the next slide. Oh, sorry, I think we went one too fast, sorry. You can go back one. Thanks. So enterprises can generate software files which they distribute publicly to both users and consumers. To help instill trust, an enterprise can sign the file using what we refer to as a code signing certificate. The way to think of a code signing certificate is it's almost like digital shrink wrap, where the act of signing a file with a code signing certificate provides an assertion as to the authenticity of that file. Entrust verifies code signing certificates to the EV verification standard. The reason behind this is code signing certificates are one of the riskiest type of certificates. And if code signing certificates get into the wrong hands, it can cause a lot of havoc, right? Because code signing certificates can be used to sign malware. Malware can then get installed with normal trust dialogues. And so, to try and discourage attackers or bad actors from trying to get access to Entrust code signing certificates, we always verify code signing to the EV standard, because this reduces the likelihood that an attacker will try and attempt to get a code signing certificate from Entrust. We can go to the next slide. So when thinking about which certificate authority to work with, it's also important to consider the security and capabilities offered by a CA beyond the actual certificate itself. The Entrust Certificate Services MPKI experience supports 6 best practices when it comes to the management of SSL certificates. If we just, let me run through these very quickly. So one, the discovery. Through Entrust Discovery Service, we're able to find rogue certificates. We're also able to identify certificate locations and import them into a central management console. The second best practice is related to inventory management. Entrust Certificate Solutions is flexible in the sense that it supports different enterprise business models and offers customer-friendly policies that allow enterprises to recycle licenses. The third best practice relates to Entrust's intuitive, flexible lifecycle management workflows, which have various customization paths to support an enterprise's unique workflow. So for example, we have a combination of both UIs as well as APIs, and we also have guest URLs, which can allow an enterprise to customize the workflow that makes sense for their organization. There are also various tools that we have in place to help enterprises both download and automate the installation, using a combination of REST APIs, UIs, as well as emails. And finally, after SSL certificates are deployed, Entrust provides continuous monitoring of those SSL certificates, as well as the web servers that those SSL certificates are associated with. And we do this to help an enterprise improve their security posture and mitigate the risk of vulnerabilities, threats, and enable enterprises and their administrators to follow best security practice. And then finally, we also offer through our Cloud Console flexible reporting options that help enterprises manage SSL lifecycles, provide compliance proof, and enable administrators to manage their SSL estate proactively. We go to the next slide. So as a customer orders multiple certificates, we tend to find that there's typically an overlap with domains and organizations that are secured. And because of this, it gives both Entrust as well as the customer an opportunity to streamline the verification process. So we tend to verify the organization as well as the domain names up front. And that enables the customer to issue the subsequent SSL certificates instantly. In this scenario, the verification of the organization and the domains is valid for a defined period of time. Again, as we said earlier, a certificate authority's got very specific rules we've got to follow, and those are dictated by the CAN forum. Most people are visual, and so as you can see from the slide, this is actually a screenshot of the Entrust Enterprise Console. And as you can see, it's very visual. So just to highlight some of the capabilities that Entrust offers through through our console, this dashboard that you see is fully customizable, but starting from the top left, it has an option to present administrators with the top list of actions that an administrator needs to take to stay in front of their SSL estate. Beyond that is a list of SSL lifecycle management tasks. There are a variety of different views that allow an administrator to very quickly pinpoint which SSL certificates need attention, as they might be out of company compliance, We also have views which show where SSL certificates are deployed, which SSL certificates need to be reconfigured to support best security practice. So these different views and levels of customization allow administrators to prioritize their work. Prioritizing work is important, especially as the growth rate of SSL certificates is exponential. And so, with all these various data points, administrators can stay in front of the latest vulnerabilities as well as the evolving SSL standards. Next slide. So there are a number of different features that the market is looking for, whether it's instant issuance of certificates through one interface to capabilities to handle SSL certificate lifecycle management. In addition, there's also a need within the market for a certificate authority to create custom views based on key data points and data tagging, as well as offering intuitive UI capabilities that supports and provide frequent industry and product updates. The market is also looking for self-service ordering and contract options, as well as services that support the ability to import and manage non-Entrust certificates from within the same console. And finally, options that allow an enterprise to integrate with other solutions using a REST API. The good news is that with Entrust Advantage, we actually address and solve all of these market issues, whether it's automatic SSL service tests, policy and best practice alerts, as well as our flexible licensing policies. Not to mention that we also offer reporting and installation support tools and knowledge base articles as well. Next slide. So as just want to spend a little bit of time and talk about automation with respect to SSL and its integrations. Last year, the industry reduced the validity period of SSL certificates to 13 months. And as the validity period of SSL decreases and the volume of SSL certificates in the use cases has grown, SSL administration and management is one of many important jobs that are performed within the IT organization, and therefore capabilities to automate the provisioning, fulfillment, and installation of SSL certificates and support integrations with existing tools is extremely important. When IT has to manage disparate activities like TLS SSL across multiple platforms and applications, it does have the potential to create blind spots. And when those blind spots are in place, this can create risks of unexpected outages or compliance breaches. So that's why in Entrust, we offer, not only do we have the cloud-based UI, which I showed you a screenshot of earlier, as well as the REST API, but in addition to that, part of our product strategy is to give our enterprise customers access to a number of different integrations which Entrust has built using our REST API to provide more flexibility for enterprises. So just very briefly, I'll touch on some of these. So one of these is the Ansible integration. Again, this enables, it's integrated with our REST API, but it enables enterprises to avoid deploying certificates manually and therefore save a considerable amount of time. Entrust's Ansible module lets DevOps professionals deploy certificates at scale. It supports automated certificate deployment as well as domain validation. And because of those capabilities, it creates a true plug-and-play experience. And that also helps an enterprise to ensure that renewals take place in a timely fashion and reduces the risk of downtime due to certificate expiration. Because this whole lifecycle process is automated, it also reduces the risk of error, right? And to the extent you can reduce the risk of error, that also helps to improve the security posture of the organization. Entrust also has integration with Venafi. And I would say the combined benefit of best practices for digital certificates with Entrust's fully automated lifecycle management, as well as the cost of Entrust subscription program, helps to offset the cost of Venafi's platform as well. And then finally, Entrust also has a ServiceNow integration, which enables customers who are currently using ServiceNow to manage many of their IT-related workflows. Entrust's ServiceNow integration helps an enterprise to simplify the TLS certificate issuance and lifecycle management on the same platform that they're already using on a daily basis, right? So if your organization is using ServiceNow today, your employees are familiar with that, it can help reduce the learning curve of learning a different console or application. Having said that, let's maybe switch to watching a short demo on the Entrust Certificate Services platform and SSL management capabilities. Thanks.
In a hyper-connected business landscape filled with evolving risks, digital certificates give organizations confidence that their web applications are secure and give website visitors assurance to confidently transact on your website. But for IT professionals, the challenge is gaining the visibility necessary to manage thousands of digital certificates across the enterprise. A lack of centralization and incomplete reporting make it difficult to ensure all certificates are still valid and compliant with the latest security protocols. The result? Too often, lapses in certificate expiration lead to system outages, and worse, create security gaps and other vulnerabilities. Entrust Certificate Services takes the guesswork out of certificate lifecycle management, giving IT an intuitive cloud-based platform for managing the entire lifecycle of all digital certificates. It's security beyond the certificate. With Entrust Certificate Services, you have all the visibility and management tools you need to eliminate blind spots, reduce security gaps, and mitigate risk, ensuring your services stay up and running. Your Entrust Certificate Services dashboard uses advanced certificate discovery functionality to locate and consolidate all your organization's digital certificates to a centralized dashboard, even certificates issued by other vendors, giving you comprehensive visibility and control to manage your inventory. With just one click, you can purchase and reissue certificates anytime, 24/7. Automated installation tools for Apache, Apache variants, and Windows IIS servers speed deployment and reduce errors associated with tedious manual installs. Once deployed, robust monitoring functionality makes it easy to monitor your web applications, including an automated SSL server test that checks for secure server configuration and other vulnerabilities in real time via the fully configurable dashboard. And should an issue arise, automated reporting delivers critical alerts on upcoming certificate expirations, weak security protocols, and policy issues, so you can take immediate action to keep business securely up and running. Acme services enable fully automated certificate installation on Apache and Apache variant systems, while Entrust Turbo gives you a hassle-free way to automatically install SSL certificates directly onto your Windows IIS servers. With these automated installation tools, you can speed up implementation while eliminating configuration issues at the endpoint. And to give you even greater security, Entrust Certificate Services includes malware scanning and reputation monitoring from SiteLock, one of the most trusted names in website security. SiteLock scans your website daily, hunting down harmful code, malware, or other malicious attacks, so you can take action before they threaten your site and your business. We know that web environments are constantly shifting and evolving, so Entrust Certificate Services gives you the flexibility to adjust your changing needs. This includes unlimited certificate reissues, unlimited server licensing, and built-in updates to keep you protected with the latest security protocols. You can also choose from traditional units-based licensing or our cost-saving subscription-based plan, which allows you to reuse certificate licenses as needed. This unique flexible licensing option gives you the freedom to deploy and redeploy licenses throughout a certificate's lifecycle, ensuring you get the most value out of every certificate. All of these powerful tools come backed by Entrust's highly acclaimed support team. Just as our certificate services platform covers the entire certificate lifecycle, our service experts are there at every step, providing guidance through installation and setup, as well as swift troubleshooting should an issue arise. Most importantly, by choosing Entrust Certificate Services, you're partnering with a recognized and trusted leader in digital security. Your partnership with Entrust gives your business direct access to our continuing legacy of innovation in digital security, the newest security tools and technologies, the latest protocols and best practices, and the hard-earned expertise that comes from industry pioneers. Businesses in various industries around the world rely on Entrust as a trusted business partner, delivering the best value in digital certificates, backed by unmatched experience and expertise. We deliver more than security. We provide peace of mind that empowers you to confidently move your digital business forward. Ready to make simple digital certificate management a reality? Make your move to Entrust Certificate Services today.
Great, thank you. So as you saw from the video, Entrust offers a very robust and feature-rich console and experience to our enterprise customers. But more importantly, to help enterprises manage the cost of their SSL estates, at Entrust we support a number of different commercial models, and we try to work with our customers to help find a commercial model that best meets their requirements. However, one that I would like to highlight is our subscription model, which is actually one of our most cost-effective models. And it's a model where an enterprise can enter into a subscription over a period of time based on their specific requirements. As part of that subscription, a customer has access to a range of different SSL products to help the enterprise try and meet their different use cases. And as part of that, we typically find when we speak to customers, a lot of enterprises have various projects that last for various periods of time. And with the subscription model, a customer that does have a number of projects that are running, a customer could request an SSL certificate for the duration of that project. And when the project is finished, they could go through a standard process that we refer to as revocation of that certificate. And the act of revoking that certificate would then release the license associated with that SSL certificate back into the enterprise's customer pool, thereby allowing the enterprise to reuse that license for another project. Our experience with this model is that customers really like this subscription model because it offers a lot of flexibility and really helps an enterprise to reduce the total cost of ownership of their SSL estate and minimize the risk, especially if the cost of SSL is managed by IT, minimize the risk of IT exceeding budgets for unplanned or unknown projects. So I wanted to highlight that as well. If we can just finally just wrap up, I just wanted to summarize a few key points. I know we covered a lot of different topics related to SSL, but there's maybe a few key points that we could highlight in the next slide. I would just say, just kind of summarize that the use and adoption of SSL has exploded exponentially. I've, as mentioned at the start, I've been in the industry for 18 years, and I would say in the last 5 years, the growth has been exponential. The other key points to call out is that not all SSL certificates are created equally. Just to recap, there are 3 different categories of SSL certificates, DV, OV, and EV. And when you use each category, really depends on the use case that you're trying to support. And as we said, there's a number of different use cases, whether it's internal facing or external facing, customer facing, it can govern or dictate what type of certificate you want to use. And coupled with that, just recently, as of last year, the industry's also reduced the maximum validity period to 13 months. With all these factors, that's really increased the risk in an enterprise context of an enterprise missing SSL expiry dates. And unfortunately, if an SSL certificate is not renewed, or it's forgotten about, or it's managed through a spreadsheet, that can unfortunately lead to unwanted outages and potentially costs associated with that. However, the good news is that a good certificate management lifecycle capability can help heal that pain. And Entrust does have all the tools and capabilities to help enterprises address all these requirements, whether it's through our SSL TLS discovery capabilities to help identify and find the certificates, or whether it's through the management of those certificates through the SSL lifecycle, as well as our various integrations and APIs that enable enterprises to support the automation of those certificates. Again, I just want to thank you for your time, and let's see if we have any questions. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Kevin and Aaron, for running the discussions. I hope our audience have gained insights on how they can use SSL certificates with NetTrust and Entrust. To our audience, we have received your questions from earlier. Thank you for sending them in. And now for the exciting part, we will proceed to the Q&A. For those who just recently joined, please type in your questions in the Q&A panel. And if we don't get to your questions today, we will be sure to follow up afterwards. All right, so we will now take some questions. Okay, we've got one here, and it reads, what is the difference between EV or Extended Validation SSL Certificate and Wildcard SSL Certificate to allow multi-domain security? Kevin and Aaron, can you please address this question for the benefit of our audience, please?
Yeah, sure. I'll take that, Kate. Thanks. So that's a good question. And I think the way to answer that is in a few different parts, because there's different parts to this question. First off, if you're trying to compare an EV SSL certificate and a wildcard certificate, the first comparison you should look at is the validation or the verification that goes into those certificates. EV SSL certificate follows what we call the extended validation process, whereas a wildcard certificate follows what we refer to as the organization validation process. And if you go back to the slide earlier where I discussed the different categories, one of the key points I mentioned was that extended validation has the highest level of identity. And so typically, the first difference is the validation level. Secondly, the other point I'll call out is, according to the CAB forum does not permit the use of wildcard certificates in an EV context, right? There is, so because wildcards are not supported in an EV context, wildcards can only be secured or be issued using OV validation. What I will say is our EV SSL certificates from Entrust support up to 250 domains. Wildcard certificates from Entrust also support up to 250 domains, but you can have a combination. So you can either have, let's say wildcard or star.entrust.com or www.entrust.com in a wildcard certificate from Entrust. So hopefully that answers the question, but if you have any further clarifications, let me know.
All right, Thank you so much, Kevin, for answering that question. Okay, so we've got another question here from our audience, and it reads, how do you check which SSL certificate is installed?
Sure. So, Kate, I'll take this one as well. So it's not too difficult to check which SSL certificate is installed. You can actually easily check whether an SSL certificate is installed by going to a browser, assuming that this SSL certificate is public facing, and you can simply add to the prefix of the domain https://. If you add that to the prefix of the domain that you're checking within the browser should then return a padlock. If the SSL certificate is installed, the browser will return a padlock. You can then double click on that padlock, and that will allow you to view the details of the SSL certificate. So again, that's a relatively quick and easy process.
Perfect. Thank you again, Aaron. And next question, how long will it take to install the SSL certificate, and what is the process?
Sure. So Kate, I'll take this one as well. So I would say
for
this,
taking the questions.
yeah, no worries. So this one depends on a few factors. The first question I would ask is, is the SSL certificate being installed manually, or is it being installed in an automated fashion? SSL certificates are installed automatically using the ACME protocol, or one of Entrust's integrations, such as Ansible or October install. The installation can take place in a matter of seconds, and really there's very little that the IT administrator has to do. All of those steps and processes are managed using the software. On the other hand, if the SSL certificate is installed manually, probably the installation would take a matter of minutes. And so, the user would need to retrieve a copy of the SSL certificate that's issued by Entrust. And that could be, from an email that they receive from us, from a pickup link. Once they retrieve the certificate, they then copy that file to the appropriate directory on the web server that the website is running on. And the steps that they follow to install the certificates on the web server can vary. It depends, are they using Apache, Microsoft IIS, or Tomcat? But we have a good support structure. Entrust has got a good support structure where there's a lot of knowledge base articles with very specific instructions. So again, I would say probably seconds if installation is automatic, and a combination of minutes if the SSL certificate's installed manually.
So to add on a bit to your answer, Kevin, we actually recommend for our customers to use the automated way. That's with Entrust Turbo or with ACME. So if you have any questions regarding how you can make use of those tools are freely available. You can always contact us, and we will guide you accordingly.
Okay,
Great. All right, so another question here, and it reads, currently we do have Advantage SSL for our email domain. What is the difference between Advantage SSL against or MIME SSL?
Yeah. Aaron, would you like me to take that one, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, cool. So that's a great question. So the difference between Advantage SSL and SMIME is Advantage is an SSL certificate, whereas SMIME is an email certificate. Now, what you might find is you have an email domain. For example, I'm going to make this up, but you might have owa.entrust.com. So OWA is for Outlook Web Access. So that essentially secures the portal where you log into the browser to go and access your webmail, which is fine. What it doesn't do, what the Advantage SSL certificate doesn't do, is it doesn't allow the employee, if you're the employee and you've logged into the webmail, that's great. But now if you want to go and send an email, you might want to send the email encrypted to whoever you're sending it to. And two, you also might want to prove your identity to the person you're sending the email to, right? It might be a customer, could be a supplier. Well, you can't do that with an SSL certificate, an Advantage SSL certificate. In that context, you need an SMIME certificate. That SMIME certificate then needs to be stored manually as part of your email profile. And then whenever you send the email, you can select whether you want to send that email encrypted or signed, or a combination of both. And depending on the number of employees, there are automation tools that can help scale that. And yeah, I'm sure Aaron can talk a little bit more about those as well if that's of interest. Thanks.
All right, great. So Aaron, do you have something to add to supplement Kevin's answer?
No, I think Kevin answered it appropriately. Just to note that the differences between Advantage SSL is that these are for servers, and SMIME certificates are actually for users. Like myself, I may have an email certificate, and that's where SMIME certificates are used. So this is generally the differences between how they are used.
Awesome, excellent. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for answering that question. That's an interesting question. And next question here is that it reads, apart from technical users who know how to check the details of SSL certificates, are there any obvious indications whether a site is using DV, UV, or EV certificates? Otherwise, choosing the cheaper validation option might be good enough.
Okay, so I'm just reading through that question, just one moment.
Right.
Okay.
Sure, take your time, Kevin.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, so I would say there are potentially two other factors. Typically, certificate authorities, as part of the SSL certificate, they also issue, and I don't have a diagram or a picture of this in the slides, but we do have what we call a site seal. And the site seal is usually a graphic, and that graphic is a real-time graphic that's tied to the SSL certificate. And there's a lot more information in that site seal, and it's quite easy to open up. So it doesn't require you knowing the very specifics of how to get into the browser window, the URL window, double click on the padlock, etc. The site seal is often free with all of the SSL certificates, and it gives you an indication as to if the organization details are included, and it also shows you to what standard, verification standard, Entrust issued that SSL certificate to. So that would be one alternative suggestion I would make. The only other thing I would say is historically, browsers have displayed EV certificates slightly differently in the past to OV or DV, right? With a tendency to display a green or a blue bar. I wouldn't say that's a primary reference because the browser screens are continually evolving over time, but historically that has been one way to distinguish an EV certificate from an OV or a DV.
Excellent. Thank you again, Kevin, for answering that question. Okay, and I think we have one last question here, and it reads, how will browsers respond when they visit a website? How will browsers respond when they visit a website with an invalid certificate or phishing site?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, so what I would say is over time, and to encourage all websites to start rolling out support for SSL certificates, what we've seen in the industry is that browsers have transitioned away from what we call negative to positive warning indicators. What I mean by this is that if a website contains no SSL certificates or there is an error with the current certificates, the browser returns a warning message to the user who's trying to access that website, and they will actually caution the user from moving forward. And in the actual case of Google Chrome, you typically have to select the advanced settings of that warning message to allow Chrome, to enable Chrome for you to proceed to the website. So again, I would say broadly, and all websites, all browsers have adopted that same stance in terms of transitioning from negative to positive warning indicators. And they've all got slightly similar UI experiences.
Excellent. Thank you again, Aaron and Kevin. And I think that's all for now because it looks like we don't have much time today. And our audience here, and I think every one of us here have prior commitments after this webinar, right? So for those questions that we didn't cover, don't worry. We will send it to our speakers so that they can get back to you in some of our content pieces or through email. All right, so yeah, that's it. That's a wrap. Again, thank you, Aaron and Kevin, for running the discussions. I trust that our audience can walk away with insights you've shared with them. Right, so if you have any questions, you may visit our website or you may contact Aaron. His details are on the screen. And you may also scan the QR code, which will direct you to our customer inquiry form. All right, once again, thank you so much for your time and for your support in our webinars. We appreciate you being here. And please note that you will receive the webinar recording through your email along with the presentation slides from earlier. Okay, so once again, thank you so much for joining us, and I wish you all a lovely day.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you all for joining us.
Thanks, everyone. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a good one.